The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I hope that you will give me a little latitude, given that I've listened for many, many hours of the member speaking, and the essence of what he was talking about is not that much different than when the opposition first took the benches of being in opposition. They have been on a crusade of personal attacks and assassinations, whether it's the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, Mr. Speaker, that this is an opposition that's only focused on the personal attacks of the government members. Now, Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to tell people that had to witness those hours and hours of debate from the member to say that as much as the Conservative opposition focuses on those personal gutter attacks, we will continue to focus our attention on Canadians from coast to coast to coast, the middle class, and that is why we are seeing the 900,000 plus jobs. That's why we are seeing the thousands of seniors being lifted out of poverty, the thousands of young people, Mr. Speaker, that are being taken out of poverty. My question to the member opposite, can he explain why it is that the Conservative Party continues to vote against measure after measure that gives an advantage to Canada's middle class and those aspiring to be a part of it, Mr. Speaker?
Honourable Member for Carleton.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I have to say I'm a little disappointed in the honourable member. I wanted to be generous in helping him to prepare his question for me, so I gave him 15 hours. And that is what he produced. The rhetorical factory in the PMO must have broken down. It's not cranking out any more good rhetorical widgets, and as a result, even in 15 hours of chugging away, that is the best that we could have across the way of the House of Commons, Mr. Speaker. He says these are personal attacks, that it is character assassination. I want to tell him I've just spent the last 15 hours reading text messages, audio recordings, and journal entries written by Liberals about Liberals. So if he thinks they are personal attacks, then he should look around him at the mess that he and his team have created and that his own party members and now former party members have told us all about.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for New Westminster, Burnaby.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As you'll recall, back in 2012, I was speaking against a particularly egregious Conservative budget and rose in the House of Commons and spoke for 14 hours. It's very clear when you look at that budget, Conservative budget, the massive deficits and the huge spending handing out to corporate CEOs, that the member's rhetoric doesn't really match the reality. But I will say this, Mr. Speaker, it's important to note, I believe that he has just broken a record in terms of filibuster, 15 hours, and I congratulate him for the stamina, because I know that it does take a lot of effort to put together coherent arguments, as he has done over the course of the last 15 hours. And I believe that this could well be the longest filibuster we've seen in Parliament. But getting back to the budget, because that indeed is why we're here, part of the legacy of the Conservative government is a series of tax havens and tax loopholes. And the government addressed it a little bit in the budget documents, talking about the fact that employee stock options basically being claimed by 2,000 individuals, claiming over $1.3 billion of employee stock options. These 2,000 people all having incomes of over $1 million. So obviously the government understands that there's a problem. However, in the budget documents, all the government says is, well, eventually we're going to get around to solving this. So my question to the member is, what does he think of a budget that says, yes, this is a problem, but doesn't do anything about it?
Honourable Member for Carleton.
Well, I want to thank the honourable member for his very gracious remarks, and also for the counsel and mentorship he has been providing me the last several days. Regularly, he has come over to express concern for my physical well-being, and he has given me a number of tips on how I could survive this enduring task, and I thank him for that in a very sincere way. He also raises an important concern about the privileges that this government continues to protect for those with the most. He is quite right that while middle and working class people are paying more and more, struggling harder and harder just to get by, those with connections to government have never done better. And I think he will agree that we need to bring back the ladder of opportunity and make it available for all to climb, rather than, as the current government has done, pulling that ladder up over the castle walls so that no one else can climb it. And we as Conservatives will continue to work to create that aspirational Canada where people can get by rather than just they can get ahead rather than just getting by.
That's right. Questions and comments. The honourable member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to thank the member for Carleton for his contribution to this debate. Particularly, I was impressed with not only his ability to stand and to speak coherently to the issue, but also that he was able to explain some of the innovations that, for example, the gentleman he shared a flight with, about how a small firm without any government subsidy, without any expectation of a government subsidy, is actually performing and doing more for people. Could the member maybe just talk a little bit more about how competition is the best way for people, Canadians, to receive the widest benefits, but also how cronyism, particularly when you have lobbyists that are trying to change the rules so that incumbents receive protections that the average small business or new firm will never receive, how that actually works contrary to Canadians' best interest. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Carleton.
And this is one of the great popular misconceptions. A lot of people think, oh, big business doesn't like regulation. Well, actually, a lot of business, big corporate business likes to use excessive regulation in order to keep out competition. And it is often in the sectors where we have the heaviest regulation and that we have the least competition. And that competition, the lobbyists for those powerful corporate interests then influence the regulators and the politicians to make it more and more difficult for anyone to break in. And why should we be surprised by that? Powerful, big incumbents have the resources to lobby. Entrepreneurial upstarts don't. They're scrambling just to get by. And that's why you will always see these powerful corporations stepping up with more and more recommendations for government intervention. It is designed to protect their ability to stay on top. We believe in opening up the free market to true competition so that the entrepreneurial upstart can get ahead, can do as Benjamin Franklin said. That is, do well by doing good.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for allowing me the privilege to ask a question from the member from Carleton, and also a member who I sit with on the Finance Committee. And I listened attentively over the last couple of days to his comments on the budget. And I will say, I just have to throw some facts out there. I know facts are inconvenient to the party on the opposite side, but the facts with regards to our economy. Our economy generating over 900,000 jobs since we were elected. The fact that over 800,000 Canadians have been lifted out of poverty since we were elected. The fact that in 2017, we led the G7 in economic growth at almost a 3% clip. The fact that Canadians are almost $2,000 or over $2,000 better off today, Canadian families are over $2,000 better off today than they were 3 years ago. The fact that our debt-to-GDP ratio is on a declining trend. The fact that Moody's and S&P and the other rating agencies reaffirmed and confirmed our AAA credit rating. The fact that we are the envy of the world and people are lining up all over the world and coming to Canada to immigrate. So I'd like to ask the member opposite what he thinks of those facts.
The honourable member for Carleton. Order.
Well, I think many of them are not facts. The member says that the average Canadian is $2,000 better off. That's just not true. In fact, Stats Canada has released the data on median income, and it's barely budged in 3 years. At various times, it's actually gone down. You know, in the previous 40 years, there was growth in median income only under only one prime minister, and that was Stephen Harper. And sorry, but don't take my word for it. That data comes right out of the Liberal budget in 2016. It showed that there was a massive drop in median incomes under the father, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, that it took about 20 years just to begin to recover those losses. And then we had the single biggest and best period of median income growth on record under the previous Conservative government. But you know what? Under the next Conservative government, we're going to beat that record.